Hello there, world of tankers, and welcome back to another one of my videos. Today we are going to be reviewing the T6 Dracula along with some Ace Tanker gameplay. So, starting off, you can see that the T6 Dracula has a damage per minute of 2,137, which is very high for a medium at tier 7. But compared to these other premiums, it's not super high, as next to it the Edelweiss being 2,323 damage per minute, and then the T3485 Rudy at 2,688, which just completely demolishes the competition. The penetration on the AP rounds for the Dracula is 155, which is pretty nice. The Edelweiss gets 150, which is also decent, and the Rudy gets a low 144. And when you switch over to APCR rounds, the Dracula gets 237 penetration, which is very, very good. The Edelweiss gets 210, which is okay, and the Rudy has a very low 194. So really, the Rudy cannot pen IS5s in the front, even with APCR rounds. So do keep that in mind when you're running that tank. You really have to be careful. The alpha damage is also a bit higher on the Edelweiss and the Dracula at 225 compared to the Rudy's 200. The rate of fire, however, is a little bit slower than the Edelweiss at 9.5 to the Edelweiss's 10.32, and then the Rudy has that 13.44 rounds a minute. The reload is still pretty good though. It's only 6.3 seconds. Edelweiss has 5.81, and the Rudy has 4.4 seconds. The shell velocity on the Dracula is also pretty good, 860. It is 30 better than the Edelweiss, and then the Rudy actually has a very good 950, which I didn't actually know it was that good. The aiming time is okay on the Dracula. It's 1.99, so it's not going to take too long. The Edelweiss has an amazing 1.72, and the Rudy actually falls behind at a 2.08. The dispersion is 0.353 on the Dracula, which is okay, but the Edelweiss has 0.335, which is 5% better, and the Rudy actually has the best dispersion at 0.326. The on-movement turret rotation, however, completely smokes the Edelweiss at being 0.12 compared to the Edelweiss's 0.15. The Rudy has the same as the Dracula at 0.12. Another great thing is that the Dracula has 10 degrees of gun depression, which a lot of people do not know. It is pretty much just a CDC a tier lower. The Edelweiss has 8 degrees of gun depression, which is pretty good, and so does the Rudy. The speed forwards, however, just completely demolishes all the competition now at being 65 compared to the Edelweiss's 53 and the Rudy's 54. Engine power, as you can see, is 1,320, which is just a bajillion times better than the other tanks. The power to weight ratio is a staggering 40 tons, and the Edelweiss is 24, which is good, but that Dracula just completely smokes it. Same with the Rudy at being 20. The credit coefficient on all three of these tanks is exactly the same, so if you did want to earn more credits, really it doesn't make a difference on which one of these tanks you pick. However, the repair cost on the Dracula is much cheaper, as you can see, compared to the Rudy and the Edelweiss. The view range on the Dracula is okay at being 264. The Edelweiss has an amazing 274. The Rudy has a 253. One thing that the Dracula does get is more hit points at being 1,250 compared to the Edelweiss's 1,150 and the Rudy's 1,100. The tank also weighs 33 tons, which doesn't seem like much, but when there are RHMs and very lightly armored tank destroyers against you, you can ram them for probably about 600 damage because your tank's acceleration is so fast. The hull armor on this tank is where it has its big downfall at being 30 on the front, 20 on the sides, and 20 on the rear, and it is the same on the turret. The Edelweiss actually has very good armor at being 90 on the front, 40 on the sides, and 40 on the rear. And the turret armor is actually 100 in the front. And the Rudy has decent armor at being 75 in the front, 45 in the sides, and 40 in the rear, and a 90 thick turret. In 30 days, you can see that the Dracula has an amazing 60% win rate out of 3,500 players, compared to the Edelweiss only has 250 players at being a 56% win rate, and the Rudy has another 3,100 players at being a 57% win rate. So overall, all of the win rates on these tanks are very good, but as you can see, this Dracula is just such a good win rate. Looking at the armor, you can see that this is an SU-152 with the 152mm. The Dracula has no armor. The front armor is 31. Even when using your 10 degrees of gun depression, it's still only 34 thick. You really don't, you're not going to bounce anything in this tank. You know, the turret's 30, the roof is 30, the whole sides of this tank are 40. You know, this tank won't really bounce anything. The rear is 10. So this tank has completely no chance of bouncing really any of your shells. One thing that people don't know about this tank is actually when its track gets hit, it automatically repairs it. It will break the track and stop you, but in about 1 second it automatically repairs it, and then you can keep going. One thing that I do see most people very confused about on a Dracula is that when they fire HE, it does not pen. As you can see, when aiming at the Dracula on the SU-152, it actually has these plates on the side of it, you can see. And those plates act as space armor, so you actually cannot penetrate the side of a Dracula's tracks with an HE. You can pen the side of a turret, but you have to be careful because the turret also has some spaced armor, as you can see around the top of it. The whole side of this tank, I would not recommend to shoot HE at if you are in 152mm like the Vindicator or the SU-152. I would most likely try and aim at the front, but since this tank is so fast, it's usually safer, in my opinion, just to fire an AP round right at the front. But enough with the armor, let's go get stuck into some Ace Tanker gameplay. Now, the first replay, as you can see, is on Alpenstadt, and we are going to be playing against some very dangerous tanks. One of them being that FV4-201, as it has 3,000 damage per minute, and the Helsing, which is probably the most overpowered tier 7 in the game, and probably the best tank you can buy for your money too. Starting off, I'm going to push into this bush. I always push into the bush on Alpenstadt. I really feel like this is one of the most important spots of the game. If you haven't tried pushing to this area, try it out, see how it goes for a game. You're just able to spot everybody as you go. But I do see that they mostly are having heavies, so I'm going to use my excellent power to weight ratio, try and flank them. I am expecting to run into something though, as I do, and I know I have to be careful with this tank. So I'm going to snap a shell, and he somehow bounces me. I don't know how that happened. That's not normal. Really, I'm bouncing more shells than I should ever in this tank. It's pretty much just luck I got there. But now I'm going to be using this amazing damage per minute, as you guys know, against this LTTB as I snap on that fast reloader. I see that FE4-201 in the background, so I'm going to back up from him, make sure he can't get me. And now I'm going to try and put some pressure on this LTTB. I do see some tanks behind him, though. Really, this tank, since it has no armor, you have to be so careful against everything you go up. Because I did see that FE4-201 was pushing towards me, and now I see that little red dot pop up on his screen, so now I know I got to get out of there. And one thing that most people don't know about that FV is it actually has a very good turret traverse. I did try and track him there, but you can see I'm not doing too healthy. I managed to put out that fire before it got too bad, though. So I'm not in a very good situation here, but I do manage to snap that shell, and he jumps down there. And I am able to wait for him and snap that shell right into his huge hull. That tank really has no armor. It's probably why nobody runs it. It's just a non-armored E25 pretty much. But I do see that Tiger and I see that M4. There's a couple tanks left I can go for. Like to get a little bit more damage out, so I'll snap that shell, finally finishing off that LTTB. Now all that's left is a Tiger. One thing I will say is this tank's not very accurate on the run. You can see the aiming circle is pretty big. So when you're trying to take shots on the move, it really doesn't like to penetrate. Half the times the shells don't really go where you want them to. You do need to give this tank at least 1 to 2 seconds for it to actually aim in, and then you can shoot at your target. But you can see I did 2,700 damage, and this was a pretty normal game. There's a bit of pressure, but we managed to fight it off. I did somehow get a steel wall, so I don't know how that one happens, but I'll take it. You can see the team did pretty decent. T150 did second best. Really, though, I will say I was kind of disappointed in the team, judging that the T150 did better than both of our Tier 7s, which only managed to pull off 800 damage to 500 damage. 14 shots were fired that game. All 14 hit and 13 of them penned, so it's a very, very good hit ratio on this tank. It's pretty accurate. The only one that didn't pen was that one on the rear of the Tiger that you saw. This game only lasted 3 minutes. I was pretty much non-stop firing though, so you can see the damage from it isn't amazing, but it's able to keep the pressure on your enemies. But let's get stuck into that second replay. Now, this second replay is on Himmelsdorf. It did surprise me that the best game I had in this tank was on Himmelsdorf, because this is usually not my favorite map to be running a medium on, judging that it's so flat and I really can't use the gun depression that this tank offers here. But I can use the mobility and speed to my advantage. As you can see, I'm just completely outrunning that old TTB behind me. It's just such a fast tank. It's able to get up to its top speed so much quicker than other tanks are with that power to weight ratio. But you see that AT7, see that Chiri. Most people don't know, but you can actually shoot right through those walls and very easily penetrate your enemy. But we'll test out the accuracy here as I'm trying to pen this AT7. First shell does go through. The second shell goes through as well. It's actually, this is a very nice spot for most tanks with a very good armored turret. And unfortunately, I don't have the armor. But if you're running like a mod 1 and you want to push it into a spot where you can hide your hull and just use your really good turret armor, that's a pretty good spot. But you can see the aiming time isn't that bad. As long as you're keeping it at a very slow, very long, slow speed, you can keep it pretty accurate. You can see that the penetration is very nice in this tank, able to slap shell after shell into that AT7. I don't know why he pushed on me. I think he was angry. I loaded an APCR there just to make sure that it went through. I've had a couple times where I think it's going to go through and then it doesn't. I was very impressed that shot went in. Gonna put some pressure on the VK behind me now. Do see that my friend's in a bit of a struggle here though. And I think that SU just managed to HE him in the rear. Very unfortunate. But it was good for me because I got to pull out some more damage. Wish that shot went through. That would have been very nice. Make sure I clear the SU first, judging that he does the most damage. Our LTTB will not be alive much longer. Try and HE that Chiri, get some extra damage in there. That comet shot just missed, as you saw. The little indentation in the ground bumped my gun, unfortunately. Do see, I don't know why that comet tried pushing like that, but I was able to get him right in the butt. And this Chiri is also pulling out not very smart. I think these tanks just don't know how overpowered the Dracula is. It is just such a strong tank at doing its job. It may not have armor, but it's just so fast. You're able to deal with multiple targets easily because you're able to outflank them. You can see I'm putting pressure on this Cheery, and I'm able to ram him before he's even able to get that second shell into me and finish me off. You can see, though, I only blocked 190 damage this game, so this tank really doesn't really have much armor at all. But you can see it does earn very nice credits. I got 127,000 this game. The last game I got 60,000. I got 3,768 damage, which is very nice. I did get the mastery, which is also pretty good. So you can see that most people don't do spectacular in this tank, but I think it's just because some people buy this tank to do better and not to have fun, and they abuse the game and the tank by trying to be better and being paid to win. You can see, though, me and my friend did best and second best. Nazorn did, again, the tier 6 did better than most of our tier 7s. I have been noticing that a lot lately in these games is that since Wargaming released that update, people are just rushing up to the higher tiers because you don't have to worry about crew skills now. From 1 to 5, there's less tanks. It's way easier to grind up the tiers, so you're getting worse players that have very little battles in these higher tiers. But I will say one other thing is that this Dracula just looks so nice. It's just a very intimidating tank. You can see I don't really need the fire APCR much in this thing. I didn't have any really tier 8 matchmaking when I was running it, which was nice, but it does do, actually, in my opinion, better against tier 8s because you're able to output more damage, and you're able to pen them. And if you can't, you can just load APCR. And since this tank holds 90 shells, you're never going to really run out of ammunition. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will say before I do head off is that if this tank does come out, make sure you pick it up. I know it's too late in the Blitz fair to pick it up now. By the time you're watching this, it will be over. But you guys really need, if any of you want to have fun, good tank to earn credits in, pretty much win every battle you play and do it fun, effectively, and well, this is the tank to go. It's just such a fun, overpowered tank. But yes, make sure you pick it up. I'd say the max you should spend on this thing, if it does come out, is about $50 to $60. But enough with this. I will see you guys in my next video.